So welcome back to the second of the 4 dimensions, the ecological dimension. So I'd like to introduce from the hinterland and Trees for Life and Trees for Hope, Alan Watson Featherson. Biometrics Water being represented by Galen Fulford, and Fire, the Findhorn Innovation, Research and Education, being represented by Tara and Michael. Good. So first on my list is Alan.
Is this the right one? Is this the one to click? Okay, great. So I've got 10 minutes to talk about 3 projects. The first is Trees for Life. It's the charity I founded in 1986 to restore the Caledonian forest. This is an example of it in Glenafric. Used to cover most of the Highlands of Scotland, but today there's very little of it left. Less than 1%, and it consists of old trees like this here, and you can see there's no other trees in sight at all. And those trees are at the end of their lives. They still produce healthy seeds each year. The seedlings germinate, but they get eaten by deer. We have no predators for the deer anymore. Deer numbers have doubled in the past 40 years or so. And as a result, you see the seedlings in the middle getting eaten to death. And we're left with what I call the geriatric forest. Old trees and no new ones growing to take their place. I became aware of this in the late 70s and early 80s and made a commitment at a big conference here in 1986 to launch a project to restore the forest. And work started in the late 80s. In 1990, that fence on the left photograph there went up. That was me in 1992, standing beside a pine seedling, protected for 2 years then by the fence from eating by deer. And you can see in 2022, a couple of years ago, how big the tree is now relative to me. So it's very simple. If we protect the trees from overgrazing, the forest recovers by itself. This is the same area, but you can't see the fence here. It's in the center of it. 1989, the dying forest, these snags, old standing dead pines, and taken last year, that's the same dead snag. They persist for decades because they have a lot of resin in them. But look at all the new trees that have grown up there. Natural regeneration. Nature comes back if we give her a chance. That only works, though, if there's a seed source nearby. Most of the highlands are treeless, so Trees for Life started planting trees in 1991. This is the first week in March that year. That man's holding a pine seedling next to an old stump of a tree, and you can see the same tree over the following 20 years or so. And it's grown, and also the vegetation, not just the trees, has grown and covered the stump. All of nature recovers. This is the same area showing the fence and the contrast, trees inside planted, heather blooming and bog myrtle in the bottom left, and outside you can see it's just peat hags and grass. So the charity has grown and developed over the years. 2008 was a major milestone when we purchased the 10,000-acre Dundregan estate in Glenmoriston, which is now kind of the flagship site for forest recovery. The charity has planted about 2 million trees, mostly done by volunteers, and it's also engaged in other work to help the whole ecosystem recover. So a number of years ago, a project was started to translocate red squirrels. Many of the isolated woodlands left in Scotland have no squirrels in them, and they're separated from other woodlands, so squirrels can't recolonize by themselves. So squirrels were captured in areas where they're abundant and released into these squirrelless woodlands. And there's also a lot of work going on now about beaver reintroduction, and the hope is that beavers will be back in Glenafric in the next year or so. So that's Trees for Life in a nutshell. Moving on, that's contact details, website, and so forth. Moving on to the Hinterland Trust, which we heard about briefly before. It's a local-based charity here. I'm one of the trustees, manages 35 hectares around the Findhorn community. And we've got 4 main habitat types: dune heath, sand and shingle, dune scrub, which is where the gorse is mostly, species-rich grassland out by the wind turbines, and the woodland, Wilkie's Wood and the surrounding area just to the east of that. It's a small site, but we've got a number of rare and special species which are of national importance. This is one of them, mat felt lichen, beautiful green lichen you see out in the sand dunes. This is another one which is out at the moment. This is the sandy earth tongue fungus. And most people don't think of fungi as fruiting in sand, but this one does. Beautiful thing here. We've also got rare invertebrates. This one here, the pied-winged robberfly, had not been recorded in Britain before until it was found here. It's now been found at a few other sites as well. And we also have, some higher life forms too, which are of note. The crested tit and the red squirrel both live in our pine woods here. So it's a small site, but it's ecologically very important. And we're also host to the Green Burial Site, which is where community members can choose to be buried in a more natural way. And that's just out in the middle of the woodland there. And that's quite an important aspect of the charity's work and one of our main funding sources. Kaido is our land manager, and he works on a daily basis to maintain the area. We're involved in converting the pine plantation to a more natural, balanced, varied, mixed woodland. And we have volunteer programs. These are some of the volunteers here planting some trees. We've engaged with groups of asylum seekers over the past winter to help us. And we've also got a project coming up this winter where we're going to be clearing some of the dune scrub to revert it back to sand for the rare species that are dependent on it, because the gorse is expanding and taking over those special areas. We also do a lot of educational work, and we've got a project coming up now with Forest Academy, which is quite exciting. But we also bring groups like this corporate group from Chivas Regal to experience what we're doing and to see the different aspects of our ecosystem. And this is another group that was here a couple of years ago. The Scottish Fungal Foray Group came and did a survey for us. We've recently had a moth survey done. You might have heard about that in the last couple of weeks. And there's ongoing work to research the biodiversity on the site. So those are contact details for the Hinterland Trust. If you're not already a member, please join us. We rely on membership. Come and volunteer in a work party. And if you're thinking ahead, you can also reserve a layer for our future. So finally, then, I want to talk briefly about Trees for Hope, which is the charity founded by my wife, Pupak Hagihi, who's currently in Japan. And it's involved in work to restore the temperate rainforest in Moidart on the west coast of Scotland. That's just to the west of Fort William. Temperate rainforest is used to occur on all the west coast of Britain, all the way from the north of Scotland down to Cornwall, and in much of Ireland as well, characterized by oak trees, full of mosses, ferns, and lichens, a green, lush ecosystem. People don't associate rainforests with Scotland, think of the tropics, but this is a temperate rainforest. Sadly, though, like the Caledonian forest, it's in very poor shape today. There's tiny bits of it left, and it's also suffering from the problem of overgrazing, overbrowsing by deer. And you can see here a couple of trees heavily eaten back by deer, unable to grow. It also faces other serious threats, one of which is invasive rhododendrons, introduced from the Caucasus region in stately homes and gardens in the Victorian era. They've spread out of control and have taken over large swathes of the west coast of the whole British Isles. And they shade out the native vegetation and prevent its recovery. And on the west coast, in a rainforest environment, surprisingly, we've also had serious issues with fire. This is a major fire that took place in the area where we were working last year, and there was another one this year as well. It burns the heather, burns the trees, and you can see a rather bemused-looking deer there with the flames behind it. Oops, gone too far. So what are we doing? Well, we're protecting native seedlings where they occur. Just like the Caledonian forest, the old trees still produce seed. The seeds germinate, and if we can protect them like this with a stock fence, these little oaks and the rowan there will grow and be a new generation of trees. We're also engaged in planting trees where there's no seed source. And Another part of the work is in removing the rhododendrons, which is a real challenge, very difficult to get them out. You can't just cut them down, they sprout again. You've got to get the roots out as well. And when they're well established, it's a real hard task. And just finally, very recently, just a couple of weeks ago actually, we have work to do with identifying the biodiversity. And we had a group of people called the Caledonian tree climbers come and do some survey work for bats in the canopy of the forest there. So that's quite exciting, and we look forward to more of that in future. So you can please support Trees for Hope as well. We're a small charity. We don't have many resources at the moment, but we're looking to grow. And we've currently got agreement with a landowner in principle for a large fencing scheme. So we're looking for donations that will match the funding that's available through government grant schemes that will cover some of the costs. We need to find the rest. So that's it, I think. Yep.
Well, that was brilliant. Thanks, Alan. I think I'm queuing up here. Anyway, I'm Galen from Biomatrix, and I love what you were saying, Alan, about just giving nature a chance and then it will come back. So a bit of a different angle on that here. But first, a little bit about some of what we do at Biomatrix, our friendly living machine that's been treating all your wastewater for all these past years. Just good to have a little refresher on what's happening there. It's growing like crazy. This is about a month ago in there. It's doing very well. And carrying out some testing and also some new safety, hand washing facilities and refurbishing the pond. So yeah, looking quite good in there. And also we recently had a request to say, well, how's it actually performing? Give me some hard data. So this is some more recent, you can see the dates here on the left this year. And looking at this here, you can see the limits. So BOD is 2.5, 6, that's the actual test results, and the limit is 25. So we're allowed to, that's the kind of a aggregate kind of performance. So you can see we're well within the performance, which is great. The bottom one is meant to be TSS, it just duplicated there. TSS is 100. So if you look at the suspended solids, which is total suspended solids, the limit is 100, and we're at 11, 12, and 15. So basically, nature is kicking butt with regards to water quality in the park. Yeah, that's just really nice to see. And also, we've had a lot of great interest. So this is a group. You can see this is RSE. Some people know RSE. They used to be prime pumps. So RSE actually looks after a lot of the pumps and stuff, sometimes in the park. And also the people from Scottish Water in charge of nature-based solutions. So Scottish Water have been coming up and checking it out, and actually there's one of the top 5 senior executives from Scottish Water coming next week, this week. So yeah, so that's nice to see, and some of our staff at Biomatrix there as well. And also just to make the link from Findhorn to what's happening elsewhere, here you can see lovely Cullerin Pond with various different prototypes in there. The folks at Cullerin have been very helpful, letting us sometimes put stuff in there and kick tires and see how it works and so forth. So there's a little prototype there on the right, and we said, okay, what works, what doesn't work? And then here there's one of 3 sections of a 700 square meter floating ecosystem that's just been launched in Bristol. And I'll be down there on Tuesday. That's just planted, and sometime soon you'll see a picture of that next summer, which will look like a real jungle. So that's great. The whole center of Bristol is all around this piece of water, and there's almost no habitat there. So it's got an otter holt and all sorts of stuff on it. That's kind of what you're looking at, is just one section there of this design. And the first part in there is a lot of people getting involved, launching this ecosystem out there. This is the Bristol Festival of Nature, launching these ecosystems into the floating harbor there. A lot of fun, a lot of chaos, a lot of plants. And basically, that's all part of a program that we call Living Water Cities. and looking at really how we can bring nature back into the urban environment, from an infrastructure, water quality, stormwater management, habitat, biodiversity, amenity, recreation, all of these different things. And what we do at Biomatrix really is create that substrate in the way that Alan's creating a fence to give nature a chance. We're creating that wetland substrate to give nature a chance. Creating habitats like this in Amsterdam, where we get also some fungi, although I don't have any of these nice black ones yet, but I'm quite keen on those. Lots of plant roots happening, a whole interesting habitat underneath there. And also I just want to mention this project. This is a CGI of a project that it will open on the 1st of October. This is a partnership between the Canary Wharf Group and the Eden Project. And we've built all the ecosystems for that. They're all installed. It's going pretty crazy. So this is all the banks in Canary Wharf, Morgan Stanley on the right, HSBC on the back, and this floating park, which will be called Eden Dock, will open, very soon. So yeah, we're really proud of this one, and it's, the very first prototypes for this, they're this big. They're in Kilern Pond. So we've scaled it up a bit, and it's looking pretty wild. And I'll just see if this plays. Not sure it will play. Will it play? This is a video of just towing one of the islands into place. So you can see that's the DLR going across from Morgan Stanley on the right. And in the background, you can see the Jubilee Line tube station coming out. So Jake there, he's having a good ride as we tow this little island into position. And all sorts of interesting plants on there, mint and lots of edibles and medicinal plants on there as well. So having a bit of fun with this. Let's see if I can click to the next slide. Not sure I can. And another little piece here, another company you've probably never heard of, Technomara, recently founded by ourselves. This is a shelter shell habitat. This is something that we developed and designed with friends and so forth, and also on our kitchen counter while making pies with the Jasper and Griffin. And this is now all the molds made, and it's rolling out, and these are going in Canary Wharf as well for habitat underneath the water for fish and so forth. So shelter shells inspired by a hermit crab on the beach at Oroville. And another project, just to give you a glimpse of what Canary Wharf and also Bristol will look like in a year's time. You can see the O2 in the background and the mayor's office there on the right. This is the Royal Docks in London. And a little bit closer to home, this is Glasgow Science Centre. Some swans hanging out there, and a really nice, successful brood in Canting Basin, where there's absolutely nowhere else for them to nest. So just giving nature a little bit of a toehold to flourish and do what it does best. And I could go on forever, but I'm not going to. And just the last thing, a few friends, these are some beavers in Chicago that are living on our floating islands in the Chicago River. So that's a brief snapshot of what's happening at Biomatrix. Thanks so much.
Thank you everyone. Thank you Fasil for putting this together, and the team. It's been a really inspiring morning so far to see the breadth and depth of everything we have on offer here. I'm here today to share a little bit about FIRE, Findhorn Innovation, Research and Education, with my friend and colleague, Michael Shaw. In particular, we're going to focus on our current ongoing project, Interped. So FIRE is essentially the research branch of Findhorn Ecovillage. It aims to support research, development, and innovation in areas such as food, energy, and housing, advancing sustainability, and pioneering alternative solutions. Essentially, it was the vehicle through which funding and grants can be channeled to the community, and it's also been supporting the local economy for many years by providing job opportunities. Often for young people. I think in this project we have around 7 part-time employees contracted, and in the previous Just Transition they had up to 30. So some of our previous work, the projects have been both local and further afield, with quite a few actually taking place in our sister community, Oroville. One of the first ones was an energy catalyst grant that looked into the control of irrigation to support optimal plant growth and output. This followed on to dispatchable air conditioning, where they used similar algorithms, but this time the focus was on saving energy and mitigating grid overloads and power outages. One that's a little bit closer to home that we're probably more familiar with was the Just Transition Fund. Scottish Government funding to support our journey to carbon neutrality taking place last year, and they delivered 4 feasibility studies looking into key areas in the community around our food systems, our heating, our microgrid, and housing. And they're currently waiting to hear about capital funding, which could hopefully support us in advancing some of these areas locally. So, and whilst all that was going on, Michael was also busy in the background advancing another grant application and proposal, which FIRE has successfully secured, being Interped, which we're currently working on. So essentially we have around 265,000 over 3 years to support us to improve the operation of our microgrid. With the ultimate goal of this project being to increase our local self-consumption of renewable energy. Because as you probably are familiar, at the moment we end up exporting about 50% of what we produce to the national grid and importing 50%, because the nature of renewable energy is unpredictable and the demand doesn't always match the supply. So not only does this have obvious environmental benefits of being able to consume more of our own renewable energy, but there are also financial and economic benefits to our local stakeholders like Findhorn Wind Park and us as energy consumers by using more of what we produce. Interped, it's also part of a bigger project, so we are one of 4 pilots in the consortium, and they're all quite distinct and diverse, so we're the only intentional community in the mix. We have one in Spain, Romania, and Switzerland. One is more of a traditional, conventional village. Another one is an urban college district. And in Spain, it's a complex of a couple nursing homes and a hospital. But what they do have in common is that they are either already considered or are on their road to becoming a positive energy district. Or a PED, and a positive energy district is essentially a settlement that produces more energy than they consume through a combination of renewable energy production, energy efficient measures, and advanced energy management systems. And it's this last one around advanced energy management systems where Interped is focusing. And we have, I think, around another 14 partners in the consortium across Europe with technical expertise in different areas which are going to be supporting us to look at our systems here locally. So it's an opportunity to tap into the skills and expertise of this network. The overall aim of Interped as a whole is to develop and demonstrate innovative, scalable, and replicable solutions for positive energy districts so that pilots set a benchmark for future energy systems. So for us, with Findhorn having been a pioneer in the field of sustainability, it's an exciting next step as an evolving energy community to continue serving as a demonstration site for other energy communities and positive energy districts that are also making this transition. In particular, it provides a valuable example of how energy transition can take place from the bottom up by integrating renewables, small-scale renewables, into our energy systems instead of a previously top-down approach. One final thing before I hand over to Michael. So if you think this sounds interesting and want to contribute to how these ideas are being developed, you're welcome to join us at our September workshops next week on Friday afternoon between 2:30 and 5:30, and on Saturday between 10:30 and 4:30 we will be in Cologne House. And we're going to be looking at how Interped can support us in achieving our energy objectives, joined by some of the key stakeholders who are in this conversation in the community. I won't take up too much time, but feel free to either reach out to me over email or come catch me for a chat afterwards if you want some more information. Yeah, now Michael is going to share a bit more about our microgrid, what we're doing through the project, and some of the possible business opportunities that could follow from it.
How does it go forward? Yeah, hello. The microgrid, you're probably all familiar with it. We mainly generate our renewable energy with wind, but we've also got solar and batteries. There's been increasing interest in batteries in the community, and we now have 4 batteries that are associated with individual houses. That really helps. What do we do with that energy? It goes through a microgrid, and what we're mainly doing at present is feeding heating systems. There are some 70 to 80 heat pumps in the community, so they are needing electrical energy. So that's quite a lot of our load. We also have electric vehicle charging. Unfortunately, we don't have many electric vehicles, but that will be a growing use of our energy as we move along. And we've also putting in metering now. And a good example is what we're doing this week in Liza Hollingshead's house, where she has both the kilowatt hours she's actually using, but also she has PVs that will be measured. Her battery will be measured. It's a Tesla battery, as well as a heat pump. So what we're doing is we're supplying the data from Liza's house at 15-minute intervals to partners in the consortium of Interped, and hopefully they will then come up with some greater use of renewables. Part of this is going to be the control system that will go in, and of course we're early days on that. Can I go back? Okay, there's one slide missing, but never mind. What's the business opportunity here? The business opportunity is, one, to take the examples of the research we're doing and apply them locally in the bioregion and maybe further in Scotland, because all these things are going to make a difference to us. We can try and make the difference from other people. At the same time, the consortium is developing a method for peer-to-peer trading, so that could be house-to-house, building-to-building trading within our own microgrid. That is not yet available, but it is being worked on. And lastly, we can have PED to PED, positive energy district to positive energy district. The European Commission is in promoting PEDs throughout Europe, so there will be the chance of us being able to exchange energy with these, either buying energy at less price than the current grid, or sell energy at a better rate than the current grid. So, thank you very much.